girls and girls. Girls and girls.
Girls and puppets.
Here we are. Maybe where's the other puppet? We have all three puppets in attendance today. Normally they're not allowed out of their cages. Oh, we've got our toothbrushes. Good to go. But we're not going to brush our own teeth today. Puppets, face the camera. Puppets, open wide. Puppets, commence. It goes. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. Whoop, whoop. Again. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. Whoop, whoop. Oh, yeah. All right. Teeth nice and clean, guys. Teeth nice and clean. Good. Now, tonight's story, we've been bigging this up for quite some time, that we have a guest reader going to read for you tonight, and us as well. So we are most excited to announce our guest speaker, the patron of the charity, Mr. Robert Voss. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you all?
I'm very well indeed. Now, look at all this. You are, I feel underdressed most days, but I haven't got anything that could elevate me to what you're wearing there. Could you just talk us through why you're wearing what you're wearing and what it is?
Well, it's not my pyjamas. I am Her Majesty's Lord Lieutenant of Hertfordshire, which means that I am the Queen's representative for the county of Hertfordshire. And I do whatever the Queen asks me to do.
Anything?
Well, I think within reason. She didn't insist I became patron of Electric Umbrella, but I'm sure she'd be absolutely delighted.
So you've got the hat on.
I got the hat on.
And there's the lapels happening as well.
I got the lapels. You can see those with crowns.
Big question: have you got the sword?
The sword is next door.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine. Sorry, I put you on.
Just didn't think tonight I would need the sword, but I can get it later if you want.
No, that's fine. We'll tease them, and we'll for tuning in next time for the sword. That's it. We don't give them everything all at once.
Good idea. Good idea.
You're a natural storyteller. So, how do we, as Umbrella members, address you? Do we address you as the Lord Lieutenant?
Well, if anybody addresses me in my county, it's my Lord Lieutenant. And if it's outside the county, it's the Lord Lieutenant. But when I first attended my first Electric Umbrella event, they called me the Soldier. So I've become known as the Soldier.
It's the Soldier.
Or otherwise, it's my Lord Lieutenant or the Lord Lieutenant.
Okay, my Lord Lieutenant. You got that, Molly?
Soldier.
My Lord Lieutenant. Brilliant. Okay, my Lord Lieutenant, with a bow. We need to get a bow going as well. My Lord Lieutenant. Brilliant. So you've got a story for us tonight.
I have indeed.
This is such good news. Such good news. Could you tell us, just announce what the story is going to be for us before I hand over?
Well, as I am the monarch's representative, I thought it ought to have something to do with royalty. Yes. So the story I've got tonight is called The King's New Clothes.
Amazing. My Lord Lieutenant, over to you.
Right. Okay. Many, many years ago lived a king who thought so much of his new clothes that he spent all his money in order to obtain them. His only ambition was to be always well dressed. He didn't care for his soldiers. He didn't go to the theatre. The only thing, in fact, he thought of anything was to go out and show himself off in his new clothes as often as possible. He had a coat for every hour of every day. As often as you would say to a normal king, he's busy ruling the kingdom, you could say to him, the king is in his dressing room trying on new clothes. The great city where he lived was a very busy place. Every day, new strangers from all parts of the globe would arrive. One day, 2 swindlers arrived, and they came to the city and pretended to everybody that they were weavers. They said they could make the finest cloth that anybody could imagine. Their colours and their patterns, they said, were not only very beautiful, but were made of special material invisible to anybody who was stupid. That must be wonderful cloth, thought the king. If I were to be dressed in a suit made of this wonderful cloth, I'd be able to find out which people in my kingdom are stupid and therefore should not be in their jobs. I must have cloth made for me without delay. And he gave a large sum of money to those 2 rascals in advance. so they get to work immediately. They set up 2 looms and pretended to be very hard at work. They asked for the finest silk and the most precious golden cloth. All the expensive material they got, they hid away for themselves and worked at the empty looms till late at night. I'd love to know how they're getting on with the cloth, thought the king. But he felt very worried when he remembered that anyone who couldn't see it was stupid. He thought that, of course, he'd be able to see it, but decided to send somebody else first to check it out, just in case. Everybody in the town knew how remarkable the clothes were and were dying to see how bad or stupid their neighbours were. I'll send my prime minister to the weavers, thought the king. He can see how he looks because he's very clever. The prime minister went into the room where the swindlers sat before empty looms. Goodness gracious, he thought, and opened his eyes wide. I can't see anything at all. But he didn't say so. Both the swindlers told him to come near and asked him if he did not admire the beautiful patterns and wonderful colours pointing to the empty looms. The poor old prime minister tried his very best, but he couldn't see anything, for there was nothing to be seen. Oh dear, he thought, can I be so stupid? I would never have thought so, and nobody must find out. Is it possible I'm so stupid to do my job? No, I can't admit that I wasn't able to see the cloth. Have you got anything to say? Said one of the swindlers, pretending to be busy. Oh, it's very pretty, really beautiful, replied the prime minister, looking through his glasses. What a beautiful pattern. What brilliant colours. I'll tell the king that he will like the cloth very much. We're pleased to hear that, said the 2 weavers, and described to him the colours and explained the beautiful patterns. The old prime minister listened carefully so he'd be able to tell the king what they said. Now the swindlers asked for more money, more silk, more gold cloth, which they said they needed for weaving. They kept everything for themselves, and not a thread was near the loom, but they continued as before to pretend to work at the empty looms. Soon afterwards, the king sent another of his good men to the weavers to see how they were getting on, and if the cloth was nearly finished. Like the old prime minister, he looked and couldn't see anything because there was nothing to be seen. Is it not a beautiful piece of cloth? Asked the swindlers, showing and explaining the fantastic pattern, which of course didn't exist. I think I'm not stupid, thought the man. Maybe I'm not clever enough for my job. I must not let anybody know. And he praised the cloth, but he didn't see it. And he praised the beautiful colours and the fine pattern, which he didn't see. He went back and he said to the king, it's wonderful. Everybody in the whole town talked about the precious cloth. At last, the king wanted to see for himself while it was still on the loom. With a number of his assistants, including the 2 who had already been, he went to the weavers, who now worked as hard as they could without using any thread. Isn't it magnificent? Said the 2 men who'd been there before. Your Majesty must admire the colours and the patterns. And then they pointed to the empty looms, for they expected that the others could see the cloth. What is this? Thought the king. I don't see anything at all. This is terrible. Am I so stupid? Too stupid to be king? That would be a dreadful thing that couldn't happen to me. Really, he said, turning to the weavers, your cloth is wonderful, really wonderful. He nodded contentedly as he looked at the empty loom, because he didn't want to say that he couldn't see anything and appear stupid. All his attendants who were with him looked, and although they couldn't see anything, they said, like the king, it's very beautiful. And they all advised him to wear the new magnificent clothes at the great procession which was about to take place. It's magnificent, beautiful, wonderful, they said. Everybody seemed to be delighted, and the king appointed the 2 swindlers as the imperial court weavers. The whole night before the day on which the procession was to take place, these 2 rascals pretended to work, late into the night. They wanted people to see that they were busy finishing the king's new clothes. They pretended to take the cloth from the loom and worked about it in the air with big scissors and sewed with needles with no thread. And at last they said, "The king's new clothes are ready now." The king and all his barons, and I suppose lord lieutenants, then came to the hall. The swindlers held up their arms and held something in their hands and said, "These are the trousers, this is the coat, and here's the cloak," and so on. They're all as light as cobwebs, so in fact, it feels as though you'll have nothing on at all, but that's just the beauty of these clothes. "Indeed," said all the assistants. "I agree," but they couldn't see anything because there was nothing to be seen. "Does it please your majesty now to undress," said the swindlers, "so we can help you putting on these new clothes in front of the mirror?" The king undressed, and the swindlers pretended to put a new suit on him, piece by piece. The king looked at himself in the mirror from all sides. "How well it looks, how well it fits," said everybody. "What a beautiful pattern and what fine colours. This is a magnificent suit of clothes." It was announced that it was time to start the procession. "I'm ready," the king said. "Doesn't my suit fit me wonderfully?" Then he turned once more to the looking glass so that the people think he was admiring his clothes again. The two boys were there to walk behind the king and hold up a train of his clothes. That is the material that would otherwise trail behind him. They stretched their hands to the ground as if they lifted up the train and pretended to hold something in their hands. They didn't like people to know that they couldn't see or feel anything, because again, they would be stupid. The king marched in the procession under a beautiful canopy, and everybody who saw him in the street and out of the window exclaimed, "Oh, isn't the new king's new suit amazing? What a long train it has, and how well it fits him, and beautiful colours." Nobody wanted to admit that they saw nothing, but then it would mean they were too stupid. Never were the king's clothes more admired. At last, a little boy piped up, "But he's got nothing on at all. He's completely naked." "Good heavens, I'm sorry about that," said the embarrassed father. "He's just a simple boy who doesn't know any better." But soon the whole crowd was whispering what the child had said. "He's got nothing on at all," cried the people, realizing the truth. The king suddenly realized they were right, but he thought to himself, "Now I must keep pretending until the end, or I'll look even more stupid." So the king tried to walk with even greater dignity, while the crowd laughed and teased him all the way to the end. Afterwards, he sent his soldiers to arrest the two swindlers, but they'd long since fled with all the money and the precious materials. For the rest of his days, people joked about the time the king went on parade with no clothes, absolutely naked, and he never lived it down.
Hey, my Lord Lieutenant, what a wonderful story. What a wonderful story. The Emperor's new clothes. What a wonderful thing. Amazing. We thoroughly enjoyed that over here. Thank you so much for that story. That was wonderful. So then what can we learn from that story?
Always own up. Don't lie about it.
True.
Maybe don't trust swindlers. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Maybe that's
right.
the take-home thing here. Yes, wonderful. Right. And Norris, you enjoyed it? Yeah, very much. Enjoy it, Boris. And Margot?
He says yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you, my Lord Lieutenant. Brilliant. Oh, hang on. Are we allowed to salute? Is that a thing? Can we do that?
You can salute.
Are there any?
You have to do it. You have to do it properly.
Okay, all right then. Lesson time. Okay. Can you show us how to do this then?
Open-handed.
Open-handed.
And about half an inch above your right eyebrow.
Now
open-handed. Yours
right hand.
That's it. Like that.
Right hand.
Like that. Like that.
Okay,
That's
not like that. It's like this.
That's it.
Look at that.
Correct.
And then how long do we just stay up for? Do we stay up for?
Oh, about a day and a half.
A day and a half. Okay, got that. It's hard in the army.
As soon as I take out a salute, you follow.
Got you. Right, follow my Lord Lieutenant.
We'll make soldiers of you yet.
We'll keep trying. Thank you very much, my Lord Lieutenant. Have a good evening, and we shall meet again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.